But Stephen Covey, one of my favorite quotes ever, said, when trust exists, things happen faster and more effectively. And when trust doesn't exist, things happen slower and less effectively.
We've got a fun episode for you today. In fact, it's an Ask an Expert first, where we reference our guest's recent trip to Burning Man and how that's been able to reshape herself and her business. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlson, co-founder of Propelo Media, and today I sit down with Hilary Corna. She is at the forefront of a human-centric approach to reshaping your business. Today, she's going to talk about the importance of how we need to take that human-centric approach and apply it both internally with our employees and externally with our customers. With a deep pedigree having worked at Toyota on process improvement, Hilary challenges us to say we don't have to choose between a human-centric approach and a process-centric approach. Instead, how we can actually do a combination of both by focusing on pivotal points along the customer and employee journey. If you like what you hear today, please hit the button down below and subscribe so you get notified when we drop our next release. And don't forget to add any comments along the way so Hilary and I can chime in. Now, without further ado, let's hear what Hilary has to say. Hilary, thank you so much for jumping on our Ask an Expert.
What's up, man?
All right, so to clear the tables, I'm sipping on coffee, but you're 3 hours ahead of me, so you're having a beer. So let's just do the
Yes.
proverbial cheers.
Yes.
Okay,
Cheers. A
so,
good lefe.
oh,
Sure,
nice.
I'm not pronouncing that right.
Well, my German is suspect, so it sounds perfect to me. I want to set the stage. You are on a mission to help people and organizations become unprofessional. Please
Yes.
explain.
Heck yeah. We live in a world where we've never been more allowed to be human. Like, we have never been more allowed to show ourselves, to have fun with our work. You see these brands doing such silly things like Tushy, which was founded by Mickey Agrawal, which is a bidet company, and all of their advertising is like of butts and poop, and like, she just is hilarious. And I think we've never been able to show that in business, and I think entrepreneurs are yearning for it. They're yearning to be themselves. They're yearning to, put the coat down and untie their tie and just relax, because it's just been push, push, push. And I, through my work and my background at Toyota and process improvement, I've seen process improvement help companies benefit and make more money and become more efficient, but they often can be at the detriment of the people they serve.
Right.
You push and you create a company to operate with machine like efficiency, which is wonderful. We all want that, right? We want higher profits. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. But very often it can be to a point where you make your people feel like robots and you yourself feel like a robot. And so I believe we have this like counterintuitive thing happening where it's like the very thing that you're afraid to show, the very thing that is you, that makes you special, is what you want to show, so that you can have more relief in your life, so that you can feel better about yourself and make more money.
And is this something that you've kind of come to realize over time, or did you have kind of like this epiphany moment where you're like, hey, you know what?
Mm.
Like corporate culture and this facade that we put out there is good, but what if we broke down that facade and really showed who we are?
I would love to act like this was just my idea.
Roll with it.
I like to observe things in culture.
Okay.
I like to observe patterns and behaviors and trends. And what I see happening is, this is not like, oh, Hilary Corna has a good idea, you should take this into business and do it. This is already happening, y'all. Like, there are companies that have been first to market with these concepts that are benefiting from being first to market, from humanizing their processes by making their language more casual, less corporate jargon, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like I, came up with this grandiose idea. What I did was I saw the patterns, and then I created a product that helps companies do it, go from process centric to human centric to drive better results. And so, using my background in operations and process, this is not just a pie in the sky idea like, hey, you should be human centric and be nicer. It
Right.
has nothing to do with being nicer. As an example, Scribe Media, one of the fastest growing publishing agencies in the country right now, when I signed my second book deal with them, they sent me an invoice paid email that said, don't you hate when you pay an invoice and you get a boilerplate email? I'm here to show you the utmost gratitude, and we're so happy you're here. Da, 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 da. So super original language, talks like a real person, not a template. And then they nailed it. They put a GIF, not a gift, a GIF, GIF
Yeah.
of their accountant of all people shaking her fists in the air, like cheering for me. I died. I pulled it into my keynote. And I like have been sharing this example for so long because they took a seemingly boring and
Yeah.
actually nerve-wracking moment for their customer, which is paying their invoice, which most people would avoid. Like, no, this is really serious. This has to be
Yeah. Especially
professional.
with accounting,
And
right?
they flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, that was the most delightful moment in my experience with you so far as a company scribe. So I took my expertise in process and basically built a model, the human way is what I call it, that helps companies design processes more human centric to drive better results. So yeah, I would say I just saw the patterns and saw culture and these trends happening where it's like, especially, it was all expedited by COVID, but um, these trends were already happening where we were becoming more human, more open-minded, more whole, more desiring of showing ourselves at work.
Sure.
These were already happening. And so I just now help companies do it and make that transition.
So I think it's interesting because you have a pedigree that's rooted in Toyota. And
Yes.
so having spent time in Japan and understanding, a fair amount about their culture, the hierarchical is very different than America, right? It's
Mm,
organization, it's family, individual.
yeah.
How did you take that process? Because I hear what you're saying, and I'm hearing, and it's really music to my ears. You're talking about humanizing, but you're talking about kind of scaling the
Yeah.
humanized approach as opposed to just saying, hey, everything we do needs to be uniquely individual to every single customer that we have, which is just not sustainable.
Oh my God, I need you to come have me do my marketing for me. You're great. Yes, it is not a trade-off. It's not be human or be a robot.
Right.
It's be human and get better business results. It's actually better for business to be human. But like we always said at Toyota, you want to use the right tool at the right place at the right time. You don't want to use a hammer when you need a screwdriver.
Right.
Another great analogy that may help you understand this is a sword can be used to kill and it can be used to protect.
Okay.
So we live in this world where we're like, let's implement tools, whether that's new software, automation, machine learning, whatever the freaking tool is. It could be a drip campaign, it could be an automated email, it doesn't matter. The tool is not the problem, it's how you use the tool.
Okay.
So my pedigree is in Kaizen, is in process improvement.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find happening is if we're not using the tool of process improvement and Kaizen to improve the lives of people, then it's actually going to hurt us. So in the States, in Western culture, we tend to look at, okay, how can I either decrease cost or increase quality or increase profitability, right? So we tend to be one-time initiative oriented. We
Okay.
tend to be kind of a outcome oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with what benefits the company. In the East, the core difference is it wasn't one time; it was continuous and incremental.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't outcome oriented. It also wasn't company first. It was customer first, meaning we would see where in the process is the customer suffering.
Yeah.
How can we improve their lives? And as a result, down the line, the company benefits. How can we improve the employee's life? And as a result, the company benefits.
Right.
Because if you're on the other end and you're still following with me, because it really requires deep thinkers out there to keep following Hilary Corna,
Gotcha.
is sometimes we can improve a process for the benefit of the company, and it actually hurts the person that is either going through the process as a customer or going through the process as an employee.
Yeah.
So we sometimes hinder the relationships and our employees and customers' experiences by designing processes that are efficient. For example, y'all, let's get real. It's around the holiday season. I just hired a fitness coach because obviously I succumbed to the pressure of that. Um, Working out is not my forte.
Yeah.
This onboarding experience was so miserable. And I know the CEO, so of course I've given her all this feedback for free. I, The product itself is amazing. What she does is amazing. I know the product is good, but the onboarding, it was completely designed for the benefit of them, not for me. I got all these pings, join WhatsApp, here's the email, here's a new this, here's a new that, sign into the portal. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You just sent me like 8 touch points in a matter of like 36 hours. I might kill you. And we
Yeah.
haven't even started yet. And
Right.
this is happening everywhere because it's everyone's scaling, drive efficiency, drive productivity, right? Those are not bad things. But if you do that for just the benefit of the company and not thinking on the other side, hey, how many touch points does this hit the customer within a span of X amount of time? Or is this the right time that they want to be receiving this information? And usually the answer is no. So I was like, girl, you got to streamline this. You got to figure out what your customer wants to receive,
Yeah.
when they want to receive that, and rethink this whole thing. And I was like, girl, you call me when you're ready. So, yes, my pedigree is Toyota. And I think every CEO out there, every entrepreneur out there desires a company that not only is efficient and profitable, but also creates moments of delight and meaning for their people. And it really hit home. And I'll end with this. Sorry, I'm going like just little
You're
soapbox
good.
here. I'll leave you with this. A CEO I was talking with recently out of Manhattan was saying, the reason that I finally come to you, because we were just talking about potentially helping him with something. He said, the reason I finally decided to come to you is because despite all my success as a company that grew too fast, scaled too fast, and now all their processes have imploded. He said, despite all my success, when I look back and think of my little self when I started this company, this is not the culture I wanted to design. A
Right.
culture where people are working at night after they put their kids to bed, a culture where people are working on the weekends during their kids' soccer games. Like,
Yeah.
this is not what I wanted. I have a problem. And I was like, yeah, you can be rich and be efficient and be human. And in fact, it'll make you more rich and more efficient. Thank you for listening. That was very kind of you.
Well, it'll make you rich in more ways than one, right? I mean, and I want to touch on
Yes,
two things because
go for it.
as we've hosted the show for a couple of years now, even when we don't have customer experience experts on, so much of what we talk about is the customer experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's so one-on-one. Know your customer. That's where you should be focused. And I think that is a given that we forget about, but it is a given. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. But the
Yeah.
one thing that you really hit on is the employee aspect of it. And that to me is where I think organizations struggle, because you've got a CEO who had a good product or a good service. He built an amazing business,
Yeah.
but it's to the sacrifice of the people that kind of was built on their backs. What are the processes as we look to scale a business that we can make sure we maintain this people human centric approach as we scale?
Great question. So I would consider looking at your employee experience
Okay.
the same way you look at your customer experience. There's a tool that I use with my clients and we use at Toyota. I've just sort of simplified
Okay.
because most Kaizen shit y'all don't need. Like, let's be honest, it's way too advanced and complex. Um, if you honestly, I'm just putting I don't normally do this, but if you want to email me and just put in the subject line, like, you know, uh, Propelo Media or something, I will reply and send you this tool. It's called the Customer for Life Cycle.
Okay.
And it's really, really important because we look at our customers and we think, if I keep my customer, right, it's just a choice. You can fill your pipeline or you can retain your customer and do more business with the same customers over time, more predictable, et cetera. The concept of customer for life cycles, if I improve my processes over time, incrementally, I will create customers for life. That is literally what Toyota believed and has executed on for almost over 100 years.
Yep.
Now, you can take that and apply it to your employees. So, this idea of fidelity is very interesting to me. I do not believe that people don't want to be loyal because everyone's like, oh, people, no one stays for more than 2 years. Actually, it's complete hogwash. If you look at some phenomenal companies, they still stay with them forever. Employees do.
Right.
I think why people stay changed. And the company has to understand, What drives them to stay now? Rather than, oh, people aren't loyal anymore. They'll only stay with the company for 2 years, right? That's just like complete story you're making up. And the data shows it. But instead, it's like, okay, so what they want, the reasons they stay change.
Okay.
So if you can have the audacity, and it does take audacity, it takes some balls and kahunas to think, what would it be like if I created employees for life? Employees that never wanted to leave, because the tools and techniques are the exact same.
Right.
How do you incrementally over time improve the customer experience? How do you incrementally over time improve the employee experience? And I'm making my hands in circles because that's what a cycle is.
Yeah.
But from the customer's experience, it goes from, awareness to contract signing to product service delivered to follow up and repurchase.
Yep.
In the employee's experience, it's awareness to signing with you,
Yep.
to their first year with you and deciding to renew every year. Renew. You can literally think of it like that. Like, what makes them stay year after year after year? So what can you do? One, start to actually have the audacity to not give in to this belief system that people are only staying with companies for 2 years. Because the moment you look at them as a transaction, they're going to look at you like a transaction. It's exactly like that. And you will treat them unconsciously biased as well. They're just here for 2 years.
Right.
So you have to have the audacity to believe, what would it look like if I created an experience for my employees that they desired? And that's one of the techniques in all CX work is creating an experience that creates desire, a desirable experience. If you think about the companies you love, it's like you desire them.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing for employees' experiences as well. So one, have the audacity to think about employees for life as an ideal state. It's not actually like my employees are never going to leave. It's that you're incrementally working at retaining them.
Right.
At earning the right to their fidelity. And then two, incrementally improving their experience. So conceptually buying into that concept and then incrementally improving their experience across the board, from recruitment to hiring to onboarding to training to renewing of their contracts over and over again, et cetera. Most of the times what happens with employees' experience is it's an afterthought. You don't really address it until something goes wrong.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, why have we suddenly lost all our A-player talent? Or why are we suddenly, getting bad reviews on Blind or on, Glassdoor?
Sure.
It's when something goes wrong that people want to suddenly care about culture or employee experience.
Yeah. So I think that this is interesting because and I think we've all been in an organization where this is accurate, but you work for somebody that thinks that that's fuddy-duddy. That's,
yes,
it's just like this, like, oh, ethereal kind of, thing that we need to do, but, they genuinely think it's bullshit. And so what I think is interesting about this is there is a real cost associated to turnover. And, it's like there's organizations and leadership that get exactly what you're saying. They may not be doing it, but they at least get it and they recognize and they're like, okay, whoa, yeah, this is a wake-up call. But then there's organizations where they think that it's just hogwash and this, corporate culture is all for, the willy-nilly companies out there. But there's real cost. And if you can actually focus, whether it's you're motivated by building a better culture or you want to reduce cost, there's legitimate value add to focusing on your employee experience.
Okay, two quick things. Yes, yes, and yes. Just kidding.
Perfect.
ROI. I have this funny thing. I gotta have. If you're an artist out there and listening, please reach out to me. I would love to have someone like figure this out for me, how to visualize this. There's gonna come a point. Everyone's saying, oh, people only stay for an average of 2 to 3 years with a company. But if your onboarding time, let's say is 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's variable across many roles and industries. But let's say your onboarding lead time up to performing at maximum capacity is 6 months. At what point does 6 months match 2 years? Like, at what point does either people stay less than 2 years or the onboarding time increases and they hit each other at like 1.5 years where you onboard and just lose someone?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a funny question if you think about it. Like, what point do those cross over each other to the point where that employee was completely invaluable or unvaluable, not valuable at all? Or the other way to look at this is, costs, of course, but if they were only producing value for a span of 9 months, was it worth even the employee? Like, we just have to ask some real questions. So I don't even think the game is retaining. I think the game, which is a terrible phrase. The challenge is getting value from a hire. If you see a hire, a candidate, a team member as contributing value, how much value are you getting from them?
Right.
Because that value becomes exponential the longer they stay.
Right.
It's just like a client. If I keep a client or a customer, the longer I keep them, the more valuable they become to me,
The better
because the revenue becomes more predictable. Yeah, the relationship is sustained, the profitability of the account is sustained and increases with the longer time I have with them. So it's a big math equation. The other thing I want to point out here, this is an interesting way to look at employee experience, is I look at experience the same way I look at process. If you think of Toyota, if you think of manufacturing or warehousing, which is typical process-centric activity, you look at a widget going through a process.
Yep.
And the sooner you find the defect of that widget going through the process, the better, which is why Toyota created the concept of stopping the line.
Okay.
Are you familiar with stopping the line?
No.
Whoever's listening, the odds of you knowing this, I don't expect many do, because it's very Japanese. So I'm just going to share it real quick, because it was very revolutionary and you can apply this to every process in your organization. What Toyota did that was mind-blowing is they said, okay, line manager or anyone on a manufacturing line, if you see a widget, whatever you're producing, get to your process and there's a mistake, you can stop the entire production line. You can stop everything, and we're going to fix it before it continues to produce.
Okay.
Why this was so revolutionary is because the immediate impact is terrible. Because
you just stop profits instantly.
Yeah. It's a big math equation, right? Every manufacturing plant knows you just keep the machine running,
We'll fix it over time.
Yes.
Right.
But the concept is that, yes, in the short term, the pain is severe, but in the long term, it's worse if you deal with this widget going on and snowballing into other problems and the other types of defects it can create.
Yeah.
And this is like any issue in a process. So probably a lot of you out there are thinking, well, I don't do manufacturing, so why does this apply to me? The exact same things happen in our businesses all the freaking time. Right. The worst place is the handoff between sales and service, no matter what your industry is. Let's say you're a B2B marketing agency doing 20 million a year. This handoff between sales and services, hands down, 100% where most of the process problems happen. So imagine if you miscommunicate expectations, schedule the meeting wrong, don't get the onboarding documents right. Everything turns into a clusterfuck. And that customer has the same reaction that I had with that fitness company, which is like, I haven't even started with you. Yeah. And I'm already annoyed.
Right.
Like, that phrase helps us really feel the impact of how important getting it right at the start is.
Yeah.
So when you think about your processes, the earlier you catch the problems, the earlier you stop the line, the better, because the further it goes down the line, it creates more and more problems, it snowballs into other issues. And then what happens is down the line, you lose a customer and you don't know why you left them, because by that time the problems are so convoluted. I know all of you out there have been there, where you're like, where do we even start? Where did this go wrong, right? And most likely you can never figure it out. It's very complex by that time. And the exact same thing happens with employee experience. Employee experience is incredibly tactical. You market positions, you hire, you interview, you hire. These are processes, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you market? How do you interview? How do you hire? My husband runs a restaurant tech company, and he's like one of my favorite people to brag about when it comes to employee experience, because he completely transformed his job descriptions to be more in line with his brand. He's like, they're a bunch of tech geeks, right? They're really nerdy and they're quirky and they're weird. And his job descriptions were all showing up super corporate-y, same templated descriptions of what a support tech level 1 was, right? And he was like, how do I differentiate? Like, how do I get better candidates for the exact same actual product or job?
Yeah.
And so he went through the job descriptions and he was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to talk like myself. And he made them all really quirky with like references to gaming and different nerdy things and like different, like, materials in a computer. I don't know what he did. Like it was just like really nerdy stuff, right?
Yeah.
He literally skyrocketed with the number of applicants that applied to him.
And probably could
Not
have.
only not only skyrocketed number of, also higher quality.
Yeah.
And he had certain people apply that were like, dude, I don't even qualify for this job and I want to work for you guys.
Right.
And again, when you think from a customer for lifecycle perspective, that's the beginning of their experience. That's like first impression. So you can look at employee experience just like sales. It's like a funnel.
Mhm.
Although I hate funnels, like it's not a great analogy all the time, but here it's really applicable. The faster you get better quality at the beginning, the better your output.
Sure.
And so, just like sales, the earlier in the experience you can be yourself, be human, and attract the clients you want to work with, the better. Because you don't want to get a client all the way down to the point of proposal and you're like, God, these guys are going to be dicks to work with.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. Same with employees. We don't want to like attract, interview, offer, and hire and onboard someone, and then they join, and you're like, God, what? Like, sure, they're good at what they do, but they don't get us at all, right? Or they're mean, or they're egotistical, or all the other things happen. So the sooner you address the defect in the process, in the experience, the better. The more you humanize and show up as your whole self rather than acting a certain way because the way your industry acts, the better.
So I want to get a little bit deep and a little bit kind of
Go for it.
philosophical.
Okay.
So I love the example of your husband, right? So he keeps it, he's like, okay, let's just peel it back. I'm going to be me. I'm going to try to recruit me, right? And I think what I feel like a lot of organizations miss is, let's call it, well, let's just let everybody know. You're in Austin, I'm in Portland. We both share a tagline, which is keep Portland or keep Austin weird.
Yes,
And
we
so
do.
it is this eclectic, this affinity for wanting to be unique. What if you don't have it? Or what if you don't realize that you have it in a way that you see? Because the example you give with your husband, it's perfect, right? But as I hear it, I feel like a lot of people are like, that's aspirational. I don't know that I can be like, oh, come on this website and we're gonna game and we're gonna like, get into the stack and we're gonna do like, I don't know that a lot of people know how to quote unquote keep it real. So what are the recommendations for organizations to say, hey, you've actually got realness, right? It may not be gaming,
Yes.
but you've got something. How do we like scrub off the veneer that's built up over all of these years to kind of get back to what that original realness is for them?
I mean, hell yeah. God, I have so many ideas. So, one, you all have a realness. It's just figuring out who your realness is.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, we live in a world where we don't know what the fuck to believe. We
Yep.
don't know what's real. We don't know what's fake. We don't know if that blog was written by an AI virtual assistant, y'all. That tech is already out there. We don't know what to believe anymore. So the trick is being real makes you believable
Mhm.
and makes you build trust. Now, trust, you might be like, oh, here's another ambiguous word. But Stephen Covey, one of my favorite quotes ever, said, when trust exists, things happen faster and more effectively. And when trust doesn't exist, things happen slower and less effectively.
Okay.
There's some data that came out of a consulting firm, and then I'll loop back around in terms of ideas that out of Boston named Lippincott that showed across the board, trust is plummeting in big institutions, military, government, hospitals and medicine, education, and big business.
Yeah.
I mean, by like 30%, trust is plummeting.
Wow.
Why does that matter? Like, okay, great, trust is plummeting. Because we do business with people we trust. And if you're on the other side listening to this and be like, whatever, Hilary, all my sales pipelines do business and all my automated emails bring in business. You build trust through your automated emails, through the number of touch points you hit, through what you're saying in those emails, or you lose trust. It's very, very tactical. People do business with those they trust, that they feel see them and solve their problems, right? So, why does this matter? Yes, not everyone's going to be quirky and weird. I mean, another thing Chris does in his company is all of his email signatures have these really creepy black and white photos of their tech support department in like crazy mustaches. I would never do that. Like, that's not my style, but it's them. So, I share those examples because one, yeah, they're polarizing. Like, if I told you a boring example, you wouldn't get it. But let's talk about some other examples that aren't so quirky
Okay.
because it doesn't have to be quirky. It has to
Yeah.
be real,
Mhm.
whatever real means to you. So I'm going to reference the Scribe example first. Scribe, when all they said was, don't you hate when you pay an invoice and you receive a boilerplate email?
Yeah.
That is being real. That is being true to them. That is calling it out. And man, when we live in a world we don't know what to believe, calling it out is so profound. Another example of this is if you see on a website, they have a lot of like chat bots, right? The chat bots that act like they're a real person, it fucking pisses me off. Like, I know you're not real. Don't put a fake stock photo there and give that person a name when we are not dumb consumers.
I'm Julie.
Yeah. And it's all over the place, dude. It's
Yeah.
all over the place.
Right.
You don't have to be a small company to do this. And even more important, the big companies should do this. But anywho, or you can have a chat bot that straight up says, I'm a bot. Like, this is automated. You'll
Just
get a
own it.
response. Just own it.
Yeah.
Because that's what builds trust, speaking the truth. And then there's somewhere in the middle, which I love, which is when people name their bots. They're like, oh, this is, ranged the bot or whatever the fuck. So it's how you use the tool. So be real, call it out, tell the truth, like use anecdotes. Don't try to hide as if you're not using automation.
Right.
So another example of this, because I feel like this gets more and more real the more you hear examples. HubSpot, right? HubSpot's one of the fastest growing CRMs in the world, in the country, in the world. They're killing it. They're freaking flawless. They have a customer code, right? So I'm not here to say you need to have a customer code and figure out the way you treat your customers. That's not what I'm saying. What's so awesome about their customer code is the language they use. They're so real in what they say. So I'm going to read a couple to you because I have them right in front of me. I just did a keynote this morning and I can reference them. One is they say, earn my attention, don't steal it. They're like, hey, consumer, you're not dumb. You live in this world where you know what automation is, which, full disclosure, 5 years ago, most people didn't know what automation was, right? 5 years ago, most consumers, average people in the world didn't know what a drip campaign was.
Right.
Hey, they do now. You cannot act like they don't know what this is.
Yeah.
So earn my attention, don't steal it. It's like, oh, yes, that's what people are thinking. You're stealing my attention. That's why I hate the word. Like, can we all stop using this phrase like stickiness? I think it's just absolutely, it like fucking pisses me off. You do not make a company that creates stickiness. You serve people and you serve them well and you earn the right to their business.
Right.
That is the right way to do business. Stickiness is fucking manipulative and messed up. Like, is that really what you want to go home and lay your head down on your pillow thinking is that you went to work and created stickiness?
Yeah.
It's just
you want to create loyalty, which is the consumer choosing to be loyal to you as opposed to
you want to actually provide value. Yeah. You want to be a value and of service and to know you created some meaning in the world. And this is where, like, when people say, oh, business is so shady, because it's like you think of business or you think of sales and you think of like vacuum sales on people's doorsteps. It's because you sell this way where you steal people's attention. So it's the language that HubSpot uses that's so effective. They also say, treat me like a person, not a persona. Meanwhile, there's brand companies out there being like, oh, let me define your personas for you. And so as a result, businesses are like, these are our personas. And HubSpot's like, fuck personas, dude, you're a real person.
Right.
So when we say real, yes, you could totally go the route of we're quirky, we're edgy, we're weird. Let's create some fun signatures with mustaches or job descriptions that are quirky. Or you could just talk like a real person and have empathy for the customer at really significant points in their customer experience, like the invoice paid.
Yeah.
The only thing that they, not the only thing, the thing that they did really effectively there is they had such empathy for their customer. Empathy, again, like you pointed out, it's this, oh, this is like this fluffy idea of empathy. No, USA Bank, which is a bank for people who are in the military, makes their new employees eat freeze-dried food during their onboarding experience to help them understand and have compassion
Yeah.
for the experience of anyone in the military.
Right.
Like, having empathy is not this pie in the sky idea. It is, there are tactical ways to empathize and show what the other person is thinking. And that's what this HubSpot customer code does really well. There's like 10 of them, so you can go and look it up. They say also solve for my success, not your systems. It's like, because these are all things companies are saying. What are your personas? What are our systems? Let's get people's attention. And the customer's like, fuck you, you know? Like, so back to your original question, how can you actually use process improvement to drive better outcomes while being real? It's just really kind of looking at what your customer is going through and saying it back to them, reflecting it back to them in the language you use, in the emails and the onboardings. Like, I would love to see a customer experience or an employee experience that says something like, don't you hate when you onboard with a company and you get 10 touch points and they gave you too much information at too much time? Yeah, we're going to make sure we give you the right information at the right time. So don't worry. This is the first piece of information and we'll, give you the right information from there. I would be like, thank fucking God. Yes. Or another person, and I'm going to wrap up with this, I swear to God. Another example I would love to see is a company that said, hey, don't you hate when, man, I should make this like an activity. Don't you hate when a company makes you do all the work to get onboarded?
Yeah.
That's what I hate. I see it everywhere now. It's like, oh, fill out all these forms for me. I'm like, this is your job. Why do I need to fill out the forms just because you want to remove a body from the process? Consumers are not stupid. You can't treat consumers stupid anymore. They will do business with other people if you do. All right, friend, I'm done. I'm gonna have another drink of my beer.
I like it. I think it's empathy is one of those things that I love the MRE example. Eat the food that they eat, so that you really get a sense for it. It's tough for people to visualize, and that's why I like that example. But it's as simple as I can't tell you how many people or how many teams I've worked with where I'm like, okay, put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Think about this. Think about the money that they are giving up, and what are they getting from it, and what is the purpose, what is the objective that they are trying to solve in their life? How does that impact them personally? Like, really think about it. And the closer you can get to that, the better off you'll be, because now you will actually rethink, like, oh, okay, the standard process that we had really is benign to appreciate any of their experience.
A really great example of this, because hearing all this, you can think, oh, you might be thinking like, oh, well, this applies for service companies, right? Or people that have like a human element, but also it applies to tech. And one of the best examples of this is MailChimp, which is a CRM. Yep. They're kind of trying to be more right now, but right before let's say you design a newsletter campaign, the moment you go to press send, if you do it manually, don't schedule it, there is an image of a monkey, which is their mascot, with their finger pointing downwards and sweat coming down their finger, pressing a big red button.
Because that's how it feels when you send
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
No matter how many times you've done it. It's like so literally true. In that, and why this is so powerful is in that moment, no matter how many times you've done it, you're like, like,
did I get it right?
And they see me. They know how nerve-wracking this is. Like, and then afterwards you press send and it's a monkey giving you a high five. So it's like, how do you design these touch points at the pivotal points in the customer's experience to drive moments of delight? To a lot of times in business, we talk about like wow moments, but I don't need to wow anyone. It's like a moment of delight of like, that was nice, and doing it at the right times
Yeah.
that helps them feel seen and respected rather than just doing what's good for the business, which is, listen, I mean, I love Kaizen. It's my bread and butter. I've been doing it for like 16 years. I'm very good at it. I was trained by the best of the best at Toyota. Um, but when Kaizen is used the wrong way, it can hurt relationships and actually make you lose customers or employees. So doing it the human way is what's most important.
Okay, so speaking of human, we're gonna do a quick fire round. Just break it up a
Okay,
little bit here. So
that's
really
fun.
quick, peppery. Favorite podcast right now? Can't say your own because we're gonna talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, favorite podcast. Um, Welcome Home by Garen Jones.
Okay. Who is your favorite professional inspiration?
I would say Mickey Agarwal, the CEO of Thinks and Tashi.
Okay. Favorite book?
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Okay. Early riser or burning the midnight oil?
So complex. Early riser.
Okay, same here. And last but not least, favorite pizza?
Mm, Spinach and artichoke.
All right, that sounds pretty good.
See,
Uh,
that's awesome because you humanized the interview. I
yeah,
love
it's
this.
good to get to know a little bit about you. I want to break it up a little bit.
Why is it good to know a little bit about me?
Because you talked about this earlier, but trust, right? It provides credibility as opposed to it just. I'm not going to name names, but we've done over 100 of these episodes, and we've had some people that are akin to you in the vein that they are professional speakers, right?
Mm,
And so you hear programmatic language
mm,
coming out as opposed to conversational real. And honestly, one of the biggest takeaways that we've gotten in doing this kind of journey is that we want to have real conversations with real people because there's real people in real businesses that are facing these type of challenges. And when they hear it
mm,
in a humanized way, pun intended,
mm.
there's an opportunity for them to really go, oh, okay, this isn't just like lip service. This isn't go buy the book. This isn't, pay for my, consulting. This is genuine insights from a real person. And that, to me, is what makes the difference.
Mm. I absolutely love that you share that. That is amazing. And it's interesting that you use the phrase programmatic language because, from a process perspective, what we tend to find is it's robotic.
Yeah.
It's like you're treating your process owner, whether that's an employee or the person going through it, which is the customer, as a robot, and they're not. And we expect these people to operate with the same machine like efficiency that your fucking CRM can operate with. And it's
Yeah.
not. And the expectations don't match. So we live in this weird world where programmatic language and robotic processes actually hurt you.
Correct.
A good example of this where it went wrong was, I can't name the company, but a big consulting firm here in Austin, Texas, hired a Kaizen consultant.
Okay.
Uh, and he came in and they were like, how can you help our consultants find time? And the guy was like, well, you're spending too much time on email. So he went in and he did this time study, which is very common in Kaizen. And it was true. They were spending way too much time in their email.
Right.
And he figured out a system to create less time in their email. And you know what happened as a result? They lost half of their A player consultants because these consultants were like, who the fuck is this guy?
Right.
Like, you just totally offended us. Yeah. Did you find a rudimentary, seemingly meaningless process to fix in a short amount of time that actually drove ROI? Yeah. But you also offended the fuck out of me because I'm a six-figure consultant working my ass off, and you're saying that I don't manage my email well. That's the human element. And so they lost almost half of their A player talent,
Right.
and they were like, just so perplexed by it. And I was just like, my hand in my forehead, just like, oh my Lord. So, programmatic language, corporate jargon needs to go by the wayside. these archaic, antiquated styles of leadership and styles of doing business need to go. They need to let, them be died off in the wind or whatever.
Right.
And treating people like robots that's is just solely around efficiency and productivity need to also go,
Right.
because people are not humans. I'm sorry, people, that's
I hope
funny.
they are.
People are not robots.
Yeah.
And the more you see that, hey, your employee has a value, how can I make their experience so exceptional and desirable and delightful that they don't want to leave, so that I never lose their value? That's all it is.
Right.
Bringing in an external consultant to tell them how to manage their email is about the most offensive thing you can do.
Yeah, it's focusing on the wrong priority. So.
There's a lot of things wrong with it. But yeah, so programmatic language, being robotic, the analogy you can use this with your teams, I tend to ask is, where are you being cold, heartless, or sterile?
Okay.
CHS, where a process is cold, heartless, or sterile.
Sure.
And very often your employees will tell you, the way we onboard people, the way we do account management, the way we do this, the way we do that. It's just a matter of having that conversation and creating the space for it.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears, because I want to dive into this. You had a podcast recently where you talked about Burning Man. So you are a burner.
Yes.
I'm fascinated with the Burning Man culture.
God, why didn't we talk about this sooner? Just kidding.
Well, if I'd known, I've never been. I've had some close friends go. I'd like to just talk about the experience from you personally. I'd like to talk about, well, really three. So personally, how it's kind of reshaped your vision outward, how it's reshaped kind of your vision of people, and then how it's kind of reshaped you professionally.
Okay. Thank you so much for bringing this up. This just makes me so happy, because I was so nervous to release that.
No, I thought it was wonderful.
So personally, I think so many of us, especially in business, we're so serious all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line. There's a lot at stake. I get it. We have people whose salaries we need to pay, and we have, reputations on the line, and our legacy on the line. But like, life is not so serious.
Right.
And that's how it's evolved me is, I'm not there yet completely. I have a lot to learn. My husband's way better at this than I am. But realizing that, like, most of us, okay, if you are out there curing cancer, I apologize. Most of us are not curing cancer.
Right.
Most of us are not solving poverty. We're doing business, and we tend to be so serious and so uptight and so type A that we control, which is really Kaizen, right? Efficiency, productivity. It's like, type A. Like, this is coming from someone who is, right? So not to project my shit on you, but coming from someone who is, and typically entrepreneurs are. But what it's given me is, one, I have a freedom to be so less serious and more playful. And why this matters is because I think people are yearning for fun.
Yeah.
Like, we're yearning to just be at ease and have some levity and loosen up and just giggle. Like, I giggled so much at Burning Man this year, and it was just like, oh my God, and so much full of joy. I also learned to plan less, because we control. We try to operate our businesses with machine-like efficiency, which is wonderful. But when we control, we don't create space to, like, allow in moments of innovation, of creativity, of inspiration, and just delight. When we have expectations for how we go about our day, right? Like today, I've had back-to-back meetings. There has been no moments for serendipity at all, which is okay. There are some days that are like that. But I love the days where, like, some days my husband will be like, do you want to go for a quick walk with our dog, Pierre, who's a little cute fucking Pomeranian? I'm like, yeah, let's go for a quick walk. That's so nice. And if I had a controlled day like today, I wouldn't be able to do that. The other thing is doing less. And this is going to be really uncomfortable for a lot of people listening out there. But ever since I got back from, this is my second year going to Burning Man. Ever since I got back, I I don't want to do as much because what I find is when I do a lot, I don't actually enjoy what I'm doing
Mm.
because I'm just moving so fast to the next thing.
Yep.
So now I want to do less and I just want to enjoy more of what I'm doing.
Okay.
So a lot about planning less, about being more playful and not taking life so seriously so I can just enjoy more and have more fun. And meanwhile, just recognizing that wherever you are right now is exactly where you're meant to be and just enjoy it. If your business isn't where you think you want it to be, you're causing your own suffering by the judgment that it's not where you want it to be.
Right.
What if you were like, I'm going to embrace the fact my business is exactly on its journey. And today, in this exact moment, I fucking love my business. Boom, instant joy.
Right.
And that's one of the big things is like, I realize how um, quickly I can tap into my own joy and that I have just this infinite, abundant, like pipeline of joy at my own disposal to use whenever I please.
Yeah.
And I will never fucking let anyone disrupt it again. Now I'm protecting the shit out of my joy because you know what? We're busy people. We have a lot on our shoulders.
Yep.
We are high performing. We want to do a lot in the world. We want to make an impact. We want to leave a legacy and all that stuff. So I have to protect my joy like a fucking ninja move. You're not going to steal my joy. You're not going to upset my day. I am happy and I will always be happy. Like that is the ultimate form of success. So does that summarize the personal? That was a lot.
I think it does, and I think you touched on something that, fortunately, obviously, COVID is a terrible thing that's impacted a
Yes.
lot of people's lives, but one of the benefits that I think has come out of it is we're doing this and you're drinking a beer and I'm at home and you're at
Heck
home
yeah.
and it's real. And I feel like at the very beginning a lot of people were apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry
Mm-hmm.
about this. I'm so sorry. And we jumped on today and you showed me your dog and I'm like, "Oh, I've heard your dog in the podcast." You're like, "No." And I'm like, "No, I think that's great." Because it is gut instinct that we want to be
Mm,
apologetic because we feel like we're not presenting this
yes.
image when I'm still performing. I'm still providing the service or the
Yes.
product that you need and you want. But guess what? I'm in a t-shirt. Right? It doesn't change the outcome. It just exposes that, hey, guess what? We can
There
connect
he
at
goes.
a deeper level. There's the
There
Pomeranian.
he goes. There's little Pierre. If you want to see a picture of Pierre, find me on Instagram. Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been really thinking a lot about this, and one of the things that keeps coming up is seriousness does not equal respect.
Yeah.
You don't need to be serious to be deserving of respect. And that is what we've been taught in business.
Yeah.
You need to be serious, put together, buttoned up, and perfect, or I won't respect you.
Yep.
When in fact, one of the traits we find in human centric companies is that they're open, real, and even flawed. An example of this that's super concrete because people don't want to admit their mistakes is the CEO of Airbnb.
Mm.
Last year in 2020, he uh, wrote a public letter and released it on the internet and on social media, admitting his mistakes with Airbnb and managing it during COVID and apologizing for having to fire over 1,000 people. And he kind of opened up about where he went wrong and what he was going to do to support these people after letting them go. And what's fucking crazy about this letter, if you haven't read it, go look it up. It's
Yeah.
so inspiring.
Sure.
Like it brings you to tears. Is that at the end, it makes you want to work for this guy.
Right.
You're like, wow, he is real. He is honest. He is transparent. He is open. Like, I forgive him. And if we're never real and we just always have to be serious and perfect, people will never forgive you for your mistakes. And then you're going to have to uphold being perfect in your business for the rest of your life. And you're, as a result, never going to give permission to anyone else to be real or imperfect.
Well spoken. And I think that vulnerability to me gets back to what we've been talking about, this underlying theme of trust and credibility. Because I
Yep.
think it's really easy, growing up. The first half of my career, I embodied what I thought I needed to be, not who I was. I don't think it would have
Mm,
changed what I was doing. I don't think it would have changed how. Actually, I do believe it would have changed how I performed. I probably would have performed better if I'd been able
yep.
to be comfortable being who I was, as opposed to trying to, like, oh, I look up and this is what I see, so I guess I need to be that.
Yes.
No, like, don't try to copy someone else. Now there's things that we can incorporate, and definitely we should have mentors and we should have, coaches, and we should be able to grow, but like, don't try to be that person because you're not that person. You can do what they do, but you can do it in a way that is true to who you are. And so
Mm,
many young people especially, like, just miss that because they're scared. Nobody wants to, like, first thing you come in the career, nobody wants to fuck up. Nobody wants
mm,
to be exposed. I think that that's a big thing, and especially in this prevalent, COVID has exposed mental health, and I feel like a big part of this is we're just afraid to be so genuine to who we are, and it's at the detriment
mm,
of our individual selves, which is unfortunate.
I gotta quote that. That was good.
So I feel
Yeah,
like
we're
what I'm hearing
so,
is there needs to be corporate, and I hate using the word corporate, but we'll just say there needs to be organizational or company retreats to Burning Man, because Burning Man cuts through all of that bullshit. And guess what? We're all equals on the playa, and
yes.
we're one.
Yes. And there's so many. The one thing that comes out of Burning Man is every year you get something different from it and you get exactly what you need. And that's what I got this year was plan less, do less, and how can we make time go as slow as fucking possible so I enjoy the shit out of this life. And something about me that most people don't know is so my grandpa was an entrepreneur. He was an Italian American immigrant, like born in Italy, came over, grew up working in coal mines, started this construction company. And then my dad was supposed to take it over. And at the age of 32, my dad died in a car accident, and I was only 9 months old. Um, and the reason I share that is because that's been what, as a 36-year-old woman in business, as a
Mhm.
thought leader in business, who's an author and keynote speaker, travel the world, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, does it really matter if I'm not enjoying it?
No.
Does it really matter if I'm not happy? Does it, I mean, you meet all these CEOs and entrepreneurs running enormous companies that from the outside looking in, you think, God, they have everything and they're just miserable.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that running a successful company means you'll be miserable. But if you're on this in psychology, they call it the hedonic treadmill,
Okay.
and you think bigger, more, better, you're losing the joy in every little incremental moment. And so that's what Burning Man has taught me is like, it doesn't matter all the achievements and accomplishments and successes. I'm very aware that I am a person of affirmations. I need affirmations and validation over and over and over again. But my practice now has been how do I give that to myself? How do I go to bed every night, lay my head down on my pillow, knowing that I was my best self that day
Right.
and I enjoyed my day with ease? That is success more than any amount of money that I make. And I attribute that to my dad.
So, with the Burning Man experience that you've had and this kind of what you took away from it this year, have you noticed a
Mm.
performance change
Oh,
in?
yeah.
Okay.
I work way less than I was before, and I'm fucking loving life. So the way I engage with my clients is I only work with like about 5 to 7 clients at a time on a retainer model. And I have just scaled back everything I do. I was originally going to Burning Man thinking, man, I'm going to double down and figure out how to cut back my time and increase my efficiency so I can take more clients on and create capacity. Want, want, want. And now I'm like, I don't need to do that. Like, I'm enjoying things and I love my clients.
Right.
I'm not curing cancer, but I'm helping a sign manufacturer in Virginia, create a better culture for their people, and their people are staying along around better. And we're helping them achieve their BHAG of creating the standard for which all their sign manufacturers are held. That's cool. Like otherwise, I used to judge it and be like, that's not cool enough. That's not big enough.
Right.
I'm working with a sales sponsorship company for podcasts. So they manage all the sales for like iHeartRadio and
Sure.
um, uh, NPR and stuff like that. And before Burning Man, I was just like, oh my God, this is boring. Like, why am I working in this industry? Now I'm like, these guys are amazing. I get to have fun with these guys. I'm enjoying myself. I'm learning from them. And like, as a result, I just have more joy. I don't feel like I need to go do something else or
Right.
do more to find my joy. So if you're listening and you're like, well, okay, isn't that just being grateful? Or isn't that just, you know, saying in the present moment? Kind of, kind of. I would try to reframe it as a concept of like tracking moments of delight.
Okay.
How can you track moments of delight in your life day to day? Very tactically. It is going to start off really big, like, oh, I closed a big client or I got a podcast interview or something like that. But the irony is, the more you track it, the more the moments of delight are less and less big. And they're deeper and deeper and more meaningful, because the moment you track them, you're like, oh, wow, this is a moment of delight. Like my patio doors open and there's a fresh, cool breeze hitting my face as I'm really hot talking in this conversation. Like,
Right.
that's so delightful. And what happens is, if you track moments of delight and your day passes by, you're like, fuck, today was a good day.
Yeah.
So you don't need more. You don't need a bigger business. You don't need more profits. You're just happy. I feel like if you've ever studied Buddhism or Vipassana meditation, they say in Buddhism, there's not a point where these monks are walked on. You know, you get to a point where you're so grateful that you don't need anything. It's not that. But it is a point where you're very content in the moment that you have right in front of you, with complete detachment from a further moment. And that's what matters most. And I think if we could all do that, CEOs would be happier, mental health would be better,
Yeah.
profits would be better, employees would be happier and less stressed, and we would solve a lot of these problems. So in the end, it starts with us. It starts with you.
That's a perfect spot to finish. So I want to thank you for being on. Like I said, we started this about 2 years ago, and it's been a fantastic journey, and it's one that I've loved continuing. I got a chance to speak to you about 3 months ago,
Yes.
and that gave me a teaser for what I was going to be having today. And honestly, I can't wait to actually have you back, because there's so much more that we have to talk about, and it's just fun, and it's real, and it's honest to have a genuine conversation, and that is what I appreciate, and I know our audience will appreciate as well.
I would love to hear from you. What resonated with you the most?
It's a feeling, I think, honestly, right,
Mm,
that I can get from you, in that it's this visceral feeling as you communicate. And what I think is great about your approach is you have tactical examples about how these things that we see out in the workplace. So it's not just conceptual or theoretical. You're actually talking about real things. But this moment of delight that you're speaking of,
mm,
you talked about it earlier, and you talked about pivotal moments. I mean,
mm.
we can't be all sunshine and rainbows 100% of the day. But there are certain moments in time where we know maybe it's a crappy, right, part. It's that invoice. I gotta, I see my money disappear. That's a pivotal moment that suddenly was pivoted, and it left me with a smile, or it at least broke
Yes.
the paradigm that I have associated with it. And that is something that I think is important. So pivotal moments, focusing on those pivotal moments both personally and professionally, is an opportunity for us to find delight, and perhaps equally important, provide delight for those that we serve.
Yes. And you can only do that if you give your permission to yourself to have delight.
Right.
And, I think a lot about the pain people are feeling right now in businesses as employees and as business owners. And we live in a world where you hear things like, the system won't let me do that, or, well, that's not how the algorithm works. And we have to check ourselves. Like, we have to touch base with, like, what are we doing here? Let's go back to who we are, because the work is in ourselves. And when we as individuals start to track our own delight, when we as individuals start to observe, how am I leading? Because if I'm expecting this out of others, if I'm expecting certain behavior out of others, then I'm never going to allow myself to be different. Even like working after hours, right? Like I see this all the time with teams where someone will do something really late at night and we get on an executive call and they'll be like, "Oh, thanks for sending that email so late." And I always go back to the CEO. I'm like, "Stop this.
Right.
Don't praise behavior for someone sending an email late at night.
Right.
This has to stop." And it only stops with you giving them permission that they don't need to do that to
Without
earn
feeling
your
obligated.
respect.
Right.
Everyone's looking for more joy, everyone's looking for more happiness, and everyone's looking for more money. But they don't realize, or you don't realize, and today, right now, you can realize the very joy you're looking for is literally right in front of you. And the moment you open up that portal to joy is the moment you realize more joy for others. You realize and give permission to others to experience more joy because that is acceptable. And you experience more money, more abundance, more fruits of your labor because you're so happy with whatever the fuck you have.
Yeah.
And like on behalf of my father, who was a poor man at the age of 32 with 5 children, he never could feel this. He never could achieve this, but he was always still happy. And so I think we have a duty to ourselves. It's success is an inside job. We have a duty to ourselves to find our own joy so that our people and our company and our employees and our customers can also have joy, because they'll never have joy unless you tell them that joy is allowed. All right, friend, you're great.
Likewise.
I so enjoyed this. I should probably drink beer more often going into interviews.
Next time I will. I'll definitely join you. I'm sincere. I want to have a next time with you because there's so much more that we can dig into. But this has been a great kind of opening salvo. So from Portland's weirdness to Austin's weirdness.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to having you again soon.
Yes. And anyone looking to stay in touch and like if there's any way I can help, please reach out. Hilary at Hilary Corna. There's only one of me in the world. That's Hilary with one L. My name is permanently damaged. I won't say why. If I were to offer any terms of like next steps in terms of how you actually realize this,
Sure.
there is a really cool quiz that helps companies determine how human-centric they are across their employee and customer experience and helps identify some gaps that we designed over like the last year and a half. So if you go to hilarycorna.com, you can look up that quiz, send it to your teams and see what they say. Because as we would always say in Toyota, the people who know best are the people that deal with your customer, is usually your front line. Ask them. I'm telling you right now, they have a ton of ideas that can help the businesses, that can help the processes, and as a result, help your bottom line.
So very true. People on the front lines have so much information if you just tap into it.
Yes. In Japanese, we call it gemba.
Gemba.
Yeah, fun fact. All right. What a pleasure. Thank you so much. So delightful.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
It's always good to end an episode when you feel inspired, but you're also given practical applications to utilize for your business. And Hilary did just that. So I want to thank her again. And I want to remind you to go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions, put them down below. And definitely hit the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we drop our next episode. Until then, have a great day and keep propelling your business forward.